And immediately after the rule was notified, we also had a comprehensive guideline, or you can say manual for bulk waste generation. And so we have with us Sri J.V. Ravinder, who is one of the architect of the CPH EEO manual that was released in 2017 as an illustration of the actual law around bulk waste generator. We have got a wonderful pool of panelists because the ecosystem of bulk waste generator has many players involved. So it has the ULBs, it has the service providers to the ULB, most of the private agencies. It has the bulk waste generator themselves as a stakeholder. It has the technology solution providers. And recently there has been a lot of development. And we have one of the panelists talking about how the informal waste collectors are playing the role of a service provider to engage with the bulk waste generator. On the stage, we have Sunita Narayanji, Director General of CSE. I mean, she needs no introduction. And we also have Mr. J.V. Ravinder. He is the Joint Advisor in the Central Public Health Environment Engineering Organization under the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. We are supposed to be joined by Madam Rupa Mishra, Joint Secretary and National Mission Director, SBM2, and Dr. Yashpal, Director of Municipal Administration from Government of Haryana. And both of them, unfortunately, had very last-minute high-level meeting, which are going to be chaired by the respective ministers. So, so they were really sorry that they couldn't make it, but we'll continue the agenda and keep them informed about whatever comes out from discussion and keynote at this by the speakers. Will also release 2 of our latest report. We also on the verge of completing a study on the efficacy of municipal bylaws, which also has as our findings to complement the actual findings on the bulk waste generator during the discussions. You all have the program agenda with you, so I'll not go into the details. So basically, there are 3 broad sessions in today's webinar till we complete it by lunchtime. So in the first inaugural session, we'll have the keynote speakers addressing all of us with their insights. And then we'll release the report. We'll have 2 small presentations on the key findings from the reports. The reports will also be shared with all of you in physical printed copies. We'll also share findings of the compost samples that were collected from the bulk waste generators facilities during the course of the study, because this is one of the key mandate for the bulk waste generator, that they will have to manage the wet waste inside their premises. So we'll see what are the results and how the result translates to the feedstock that were coming and what we do as a matter of intervention collectively. So on this note, let me just stop here and let me request Sunita Narayanji to deliver his welcome address to all of us.
Thank you, Atim, and I'll speak from here so I can look at everybody's faces and feel good about being together. So for us, this is very exciting work, I have to say, and I'll explain to you why. And I'm also aware that we have a lot of media friends from different cities of India here. So I want them to understand, when we use the word bulk waste generator, what does it actually mean? It means all of us. And I think we need to bring this down to the issue. This is where waste touches us. And it's something that we often ignore because waste becomes a municipal problem. Waste is an issue on which somebody else has to be responsible. But frankly, each household in India, every one of us, this is one time when we are the polluters, when we are responsible for the waste that is generated. Bulk waste generators is a very interesting legal provision that came up as way back in 2016. And then you notified it as well and made guidelines for it. And it's a very enabling provision. It's a provision that actually is very little talked about in the waste business. I'm sure if there are a lot of people in the waste business here, so I won't dare to ask this question. But if I ask somebody, okay, so what's a bulk waste generator? I'm sure most of you will sort of look it around and say, municipality or somebody else. So it's in 2016, the under the Environment Protection Act, the notification which still governs waste management in India has a provision under which any institution, and it means any institution, it could mean an RWA, it could mean a hospital, it could mean a shopping complex, it could mean a cinema hall, it could mean any institution which generates more than 100 kgs of waste per day is defined as a bulk waste generator. Now, in Gurugram, a further amendment was made, and for good reasons, it was changed to 50 kgs a day. Now, what does this mean? This literally means that all institutions have been legally categorized and have been put aside to say within the waste paradigm and management of a city, here is a group of people who are defined as bulk waste generators. Now, the reason these are defined as bulk waste generator, that the act actually says, the notification says that you are now responsible for the management of your waste. Now, technically, all of us are in the household, but it is difficult for municipalities to manage every single household. Some cities are doing so with incredible work. I was last night, I'm a sanitary. So wherever I go, the only thing I look for is garbage and plastic. So I was driving through Vijayawada last night. It was a bit late, but nevertheless, I really have come back with, a city which is, I don't see visible dirt. I love that. I just love that, where it's the beginning, and there was a night market there, and I'm sort of looking around to say, night market mein sabke paas can hai ki nahi, plastic jameen pe pada hai ki nahi, and you could actually see, so somebody is there managing it, which is wonderful. But in bulk waste generators, we are the managers. And the law says very clearly that anybody who does 100 kg and above, or 50 kgs in Gurugram, has to manage their own waste. Now, as in India, there's always a loophole to any good law we make. Okay, so I would have liked the law to be absolutely saying you have to do it in situ. You have to do it on your own premises. You have no other option but to make sure that if you can provide for any other kind of facility in your space, the facility for management of your waste has to be allocated. Okay, if you have a residential complex, then the first thing you need to allocate in that is where your wet waste get generated or get managed. So it would actually be, it would push for in situ management. Now, the reason why this is important is we know that the Indian waste characterization, what is the waste we generate, can broadly be divided into two categories. And those two categories are very critical because those two categories help us to become either waste-wise or waste-unwise. And the two categories are very simply wet and dry. And I'll come to Atin, Siddharth, and everyone else is focusing always on dry. Plastic ka kya karna hai, kitna minimize karna hai, how do you improve recyclability of plastic? How do you ban items that are not being used in plastic? And you have just done a webinar a week ago, and I would advise all of you, if any one of you have not seen it, or at least speak to Atin and Siddharth, that we have done a critique, and sorry about this, Ravindranji, but the ministry is not involved, so I can say it. That how the single-use plastic notification is really not working, and we need to make it work. So that's one part of the waste story, the dry waste. And there are many components of the dry waste, and we can come to it. There's a sanitary component of the waste. What do you do with sanitary waste? What do you do with hazardous waste? What do you do with e-waste? What do you do with wet waste, which can be segregated? All that is one large component of it. But frankly, the waste problem is about mixing dry with wet, quite frankly. We could deal with the wet dry waste as a waste which can be recycled quite easily. I mean, Please don't get me wrong. When I say quite easily, doesn't mean bachon ka khel hai. I mean, but it can be done. It can be done. But the reason it's not being done is because of the contamination happens with wet and dry. If we just segregate wet and dry first, and then the dry further, you have a different waste paradigm. And it is easy to do. I mean, how difficult is it to make sure that your wet waste, which is all the waste that comes out of your kitchen, all the waste that comes out of your garden, all the waste that comes out, hopefully, which we don't do, which is food which is unused. I mean, that is the worst kind of wet waste. And let's hope that we don't waste food. But the wet waste is not mixed with dry waste. I mean, if you just take a look at the kachade ki jo हो जाती है आपके, अगर if you're an unlucky person who's behind one of those large vehicles carrying waste, I mean, you will see the amount of wet waste which is contaminating the dry waste. And the leaches, it's a mess. Then by the time you take it anywhere for management, you can't do anything with it. Then you think you can burn it, and you can't burn it because the calorific value of that is not good. And so you end up with waste to energy plants becoming another white elephant. Okay. But the segregation of dry and wet is the first fundamental non-negotiable principle when it comes to waste management. And it is something that is easy to do. We can definitely separate our wet and dry. And I don't see why that cannot be enforced. Now, the bulk waste generators, therefore, and if we were to make this a provision that we actually work with and make sure it's used, look how powerful it becomes. In any city, 50%, it could go up to 70, depending on the economic status of a city. A city which is poorer, smaller, has larger component of wet waste. A city which is more developed, richer, and that's where our problem comes. As we get richer, we get more wasteful. We also get into waste that cannot be recycled. But as we get richer, we get into 50%. In Gurugram, our survey shows it's 40-60, am I right? So it's a city which, as we get richer, we get into more recycle, more paper, more plastic, more multi-layered plastic, more others. But most cities of India, let's take an average of 50-50. Okay? Now, 50% of the waste. And within that 50, our broad understanding is, and I know Ravindranji will also will also give us some data that exists. Data is poor, but our broad understanding is about 40-60% of that 50% is by bulk waste generators. So just understand how powerful the bulk waste generator provision is. It's not about one mall, one resident welfare association. It's the scaling of it. Okay? 50% of the waste that you have is wet waste. Within that, between 40-60% is generated by bulk waste generators. So if you were to manage that waste, and I just stick to wet for the moment, I'll come to dry, just stick to wet. So if you were to manage that, well, look at the waste that does not go to the landfill site. Look at the waste that you don't have to then end up with investing in segregation and everything else. It's a massive fraction of the waste that we generate. And the most exciting thing about it is bulk waste generators is all of us. Where we live and how we organize ourselves to manage that waste becomes actually part of the waste story. You know, I keep getting asked as an environmentalist, and it's a very genuine question and a very real question, that मैं क्या कर सकता हूँ? I mean, इतना बड़ा crisis है, climate change है, सब कुछ. What can we do? And one of the always answers is segregated home, and it looks kind of, you know, इतना बड़ा problem. And कहाँ आप कह रही हैं कि आप segregate कर लीजिए और problem solve हो जाएगा. It kind of puts, it pales into insignificance. But when you understand this full story, you understand that actually we are all part of a very big change that is possible. But this means that we all have to be part of that change. And that's really where the bulk waste generators, which I hate as a word, I have to say. I mean, I hate this BWG. I'm always working with my teams to say, "Hey, simplify karo." Kya matlab hai bulk waste generators ka? But it's a terminology that I've spent so much time to explain to you why we are excited. Because it would just seem to you that it's a bunch of concessionaires. What have we got to do with bulk waste generators? It's not. Every one institution. Now let's get some maths on this. Kefi, are you here? Okay. Kefi, help me. So each person, each household in India generates what? Half a kg? Half a kg, roughly. Half ka आधा. मैं broad numbers ले रही हूँ. I'm just giving you a sense of the framing of it. So half a kg, half ka आधा ले लो, 250 grams. So if you look at it now, how many people need to be with 250? Who's good at maths? I'm terrible at maths. Kefi, 250 अगर grams per day लो, तो कितने लोग होने चाहिए? कितने households होने चाहिए to make up 50 kgs? 200 households. Okay, 100 kgs will be 400 households. Big deal. Most of us live now in complexes which have 400 households. Okay, then if I come to a mall, I come to any one of the other institutions, you and I know how much waste is generated there. Okay, how many people go there? Now, so the potential of this is huge. Again, the numbers. We have 50% of the waste that we generate would be wet waste. Of the 50%, 40 to 60% is under what could be called, what is called a bulk waste generator, which means that if that 40 to 60% was to manage its waste as per the law, I'm not even getting into altruism. मैं तो बहुत अच्छी हूँ, मैं तो अपना waste segregate करती हूँ. बहुत अच्छी बात है. मगर this is the law. You're supposed to do this as per the law. You are defined as a bulk waste generator. You're supposed to manage your waste as a bulk waste generator. You don't have any ifs and buts about it. Okay? Now, what is the law? Let's get a quick idea on that. And as I said, there are two parts of what can be done. One is that segregation is critical. Obviously, as a manager, now you may not decide to segregate. That's also a loophole in the law, which allows you to do so, which I think is something that we hope that Mr. Ravindran will help us and others will help us to try and get that actually done so that everybody has to. As per the law, you have to segregate. But the bulk waste generators law gives two options. One, that you do in-situ management of your waste. Now, in-situ management means that I have segregated, but I have to segregate if I do in-situ management, unless a bulk waste generator wants to put a waste-to-energy plant in their backyard and put in everything and burn it and hope it goes away. Everybody has to segregate. Now, if you're segregating, you take your wet waste and then in-situ, you're supposed to manage it. What does that mean? You can do composting, you can do biogas, you can do biomethanation, but you need to manage it in-house. Okay? The dry waste, obviously, as an in-situ manager, you would then have to make arrangements with people to take and give you a value for it. If you're a good in-situ manager, you will make sure that you segregate in a way that you can get different classes of waste organized as we used to in our houses. And you get value for paper, you get value for bottles, you get plastic bottles, you get all those values as a bulk waste generator. And then you also start looking at what you're not getting a value for. And you start advising your people to say, isko kam karo, because we do not get anyone to even come and pick this up. That creates the right incentive in society to be part of the big waste story. Now, the loophole in this, I think it's a loophole. So I think whoever framed the law will tell me you can't have only one way of doing this, and not at the scale and size of India. You can't do so. The other part of it says, okay, I'm a bulk waste generator, but I can't do in-situ management, but I will hire a concessionaire who will take my waste. I will pay for it. I will hire a concessionaire, and the concessionaire is then responsible for taking my waste and processing it. Technically, it's not a bad thing at all. If I look at hospital and the entire hospital waste management that happens under the biomedical waste system, it works in the same way. Per bed, you hire a concessionaire. You have to segregate because the concessionaire in their common facility have to take your waste in a segregated waste. They will take your categories of waste, whether it's hazardous waste separately, so that they can autoclave it, they can bury it. They will take your waste that they can burn separately, and they will take your waste which is recyclable separately, which they can wash, disinfect, and recycle. They will take your bottles separately. So if you go to a hospital, you would have seen all the bins that exist. Those bins exist also because whoever is the concessionaire cannot take the mixed waste unless, and there are good systems for making sure that that waste is tracked, that waste is processed. We can always improve it, but it is a good system. Okay, you have GPS on the vans, you have those RFIDs on each label. You have created a system in which that waste streams are being tracked, and you can do an audit of the concessionaire's plan to say कि आपके पास इतने clients हैं, इतना आपके पास waste आया था, आपने इतना burn किया कि नहीं किया. You've also created a system in which every incinerator which is there is the burning temperature of that is actually noted and available on a portal. So you've created a management system for concessions. Now, the trouble with the bulk waste generators, and that's why I think this meeting is so important, is that we don't talk about this enough. We don't talk about the fact that this part of the waste stream requires the same kind of organization. We need to either do it ourselves, for which I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, Atin, but many cities, including Gurugram, are giving property tax exemptions or are giving service tax exemptions to, not Gurugram, I know, but Pune is giving, others are giving. So there are many cities giving, but that's part of the narrative we need to build. I am responsible. I manage my own waste. As a bulk waste generator, I'm supposed to manage it. I do it in situ. Now I'm paying the money. I'm also paying the concessionaire. So you have to be clear. Both sides the household is paying, and both sides the household must pay. This is one place where I hope middle class India will not start screaming and asking for subsidy. Okay, because we are generators of waste. We are responsible for our waste, and we should learn to manage our own waste. And we shouldn't say कि अरे state का काम है, state हमें पैसा दे, तब हम अपना waste manage करेंगे. Okay, so this is not a case where subsidies are required, but incentives definitely can be thought through if you do a good job at managing it in situ. If you don't, if you've hired an agent, then like in every other place where you are giving the agent a responsibility, you should be held responsible for the agent's work. You have outsourced that agent. You have decided that it is better for you to go through a concessionaire who will take my waste and manage it. Every hospital is required by law to be responsible for the management of waste by the common CWT, FE, whatever. Okay, those common waste managers. Okay, same thing we should be held responsible. Because you can't just say कि मैंने दे दिया, उसका काम है वो जाके ट्रक में अरावली में जाके फेंका, मेरा क्या लेना देना, या वो जाके बनवारी में जाके दिया है, मेरे को क्या लेना देना, मैंने तो अपने घर से निकाल दिया, उसका काम है. I'm paying the person. Payment has to also come then with responsibility. Now, there are a few other things that we have learned as we have done these two reports, and you will hear about them today. So I want these to be part of the richness of the discussion as we move ahead. So one is, what can we do to make sure that this waste stream is through the bulk waste generators, which literally is you and me, can be managed well? What more can be done? Is the law enough? What more can be done? I mean, you will hear from Mo, my colleague, our colleague, that how we've struggled to even find out how many bulk waste generators there are in the city. Okay, we still don't. The numbers that are given to us, we know are a fraction of what they should be. Therefore, there is no registration process. There is no real way of knowing who is a bulk waste generator. And it should be simple. It should be very simple by the amount of area you occupy. There should be some guidelines. So inventorization of the bulk waste generator is absolutely key. Because if you don't know who they are, how do you hold them responsible for what they are supposed to do? Okay. Then secondly, you need to make sure that the law is tightened as far as people like home are concerned, who are doing it, and people who are giving it to a third party to do. We are responsible for both. By law, bulk waste generators are responsible for the management of their waste. And they cannot get away by saying it's a municipality's work. In this case, we have been made the responsible agent for management. Then comes, what do we do? Now, this is also an area which we need to work with. We can't take this for granted. So we have in our report, as you will hear, we have gone out and looked at some of the very interesting RWAs, hospitals, hotels who are doing management. We need to hold them up and say they are doing good work. We need to also then understand what are the technologies that are capable of doing this management. In Gurugram, there was a list of authorized technology providers, but there were obviously problems with that. That list was taken out. We need to know. It doesn't matter what the government says this is the list or not. They will also learn as we understand and we practice it on the ground. Now, that's where CSC has done something very interesting, and that's the last part of this missing puzzle. So I'm doing my wet waste management. But is it good waste management? I don't know. Okay. I have a composter. What is the quality of compost that goes in? What is the quality of compost that comes out? I need to know now. I mean, if I'm the manager, I need some. Nobody has developed SOPs for us. Nobody's told us what to do as decentralized managers of that waste. What needs to be done? Now, added to these two cases, we did a survey which my colleague Arvind did. We went to the same world bulk waste generator, and we looked at the waste profile of the bulk waste generator in terms of the object. And you will hear a story which I don't want anyone to get depressed about. And I'm saying because yes, there are problems, but those problems are solved and easily solved. They're not rocket science. They not require any investment. They just require an SOP for management. And we need to develop those SOPs and so that we can manage that bulk waste and we can reuse and recycle it. So this entire work of CSC is something which is rather unusual because we often are involved with plastic, this, that, and the other, working with municipalities. But this is one place that I feel is the most exhilarating part of the work because you're actually working with people and seeing how they can be better organized to be part of the waste story. And if they are part of the waste story, as I told you, it's not ek ghar ka kachra. It's actually a large, it's 60% of the fraction of wet waste, which can be sorted out. And it will drive down segregation at 60% of the wet waste fraction, and it will make sure that that mixed waste does not go for further sorting out. So it's a really important area for work. But when we began working, and I thought when Atin and I discussed this, I think about 6 months ago, we thought it was a piece of cake. We thought this will be the easiest part of all the research we do. इसमें क्या है? Bulk generators, we get a list, कितने हैं, क्या कर रहे हैं, and this we have basically found there are issues. And when we added asked Arvind to go and test, we also found that there are issues. But I'm not, please don't take this, and I'm particularly saying this for our media friends. Whatever survey that shows us that there are problems in the quality of the compost that is generated does not mean that we do not do compost management in situ. It means that we need to improve our compost management in situ, and it is possible to do, because at the end of the day, it is a very simple issue of dealing with bacteria and pathogens, which are frankly very, very simple. It just requires us to be responsible for the management. Now that's where the story comes, the waste story comes home. This is where it really comes home. And it comes to us as generators of waste to be part of the big story of the kingdom, which is how we can make sure that that waste is not waste, that waste is a resource, and that we make sure that we are waste wise at a house, at a colony, and at a city. And that's the connection that the bulk waste has. So forgive me, it's a little long as an introduction, but I wanted to give you people a sense of excitement for why this work is so important and why we will continue to work with all of you. And we have a whole agenda to keep working to improving the capacity, looking at technology. We are technology agnostic. The best thing about CSC is हम किसी का कुछ बेच रहे हैं. हमें कोई interest नहीं है कि कौन किस technology provider. We will give technology providers space to speak, which we need to understand. But we are completely agnostic. We have no interest in this technology. We just wanted to make sure that the waste management is done well, and that whatever waste, whatever compost or biogas is produced or slurry is produced and it goes for use, that it does not end up taking the waste from here to there. A contamination doesn't go from there. That's all we are interested in. And we are interested in all the enabling provisions that can come in to make sure that all of us can be part of this waste program. And this is the enabling provision. So when we use the word bulk regulator, please don't think of somebody in a suit. Think of yourself in a suit. Okay. You and we are the issue here. So that's really where the story comes home. So thank you very much. And that's the purpose of today's workshop. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sunita ji. Let me now invite and introduce Mr. J.V. Ravinder for a keynote address. But before that, let me quickly introduce him with his profile, his long journey in the ministry. So Mr. Ravinder is currently working as a joint advisor in Central Public Health Environmental Engineering Organization, commonly known as CPHEO, under the Ministry of Urban, Government of India. He's a BTech in Civil Engineering and Masters of Engineering in Public Health from University of Calcutta, and he's serving the ministry since 2005. So it's a really long time. Prior to that, he has served with Hyderabad Water Supply and Sewerage Board in various positions for about 16 to 18 years. As joint advisor in the ministry, he provides technical assistance and advice to the Ministry, Government of India in all matters of urban water supply and sanitation, represents ministry in technical issues and discussions with multilateral agencies like World Bank, Asian Development Bank, JICA, GIZ, etc. He's also very deeply involved with Bureau of Indian Standard or BIS in water and sanitation issues. He's a member of the expert committee drafting the manuals on sewerage and sewage treatment systems and on municipal solid waste management 2016, the rule that we often refer, and several other advisories in MSWM. And he's also a key resource in the entire implementation protocol of SBM 2.0 Pan India. And he's also responsible for scrutinizing all the city sanitation action plan or city solid waste action plan that has been mandated to all the 4,800 cities under Swachh Bharat Mission 2 as an expert. And he reviews those proposals and sends them with his recommendations for disbursement of the additional central assistance under the flagship Swachh Bharat Mission 2.0. So thank you so much, Ravinder ji. Over to you. You may please deliver your keynote address now.
Thank you, Atinji, and for that long introduction. Once again, I apologize for being whoever is designated as advisors, because we take a lot of advice ourselves, and thereby only we are in a position that where we are. So our manuals keep on making you one. Now, one particular thing which interested me in one place was what Sundanarayan mentioned about the compost. Because we do not have too much. And the UNP level also, it is a huge problem to get certificate because agriculture department is involved. So we have an issue because FCO is very clear. Whichever has a risk in the very long term, contaminating the soil, they don't want. That is where compost is structured. As a simple interpretation, what we can see is if my waste is from a household or from an institutional area, its compost quality should be reasonably good. So therefore, I'm almost dying to hear the results because you have already said the cat in the among the pigeons. You said don't get depressed. So I look forward to that. Coming back to the bulk waste management story, it all goes into SWM 2016. When we were drafting, I was the junior member of that committee from the university. My senior, Dr. V.K. Chauras, was the main person. And after drafting, many interactions happened. GIZ from German Cooperation, they supported us. So a lot of intergovernmental agencies also. So today, whenever we talk about our SWM rules, our foreign friends say that your SWM rules are very well drafted, are very nice. Even we would like to take something from that. The compliance is the problem. As Atinji was introducing, the first thing which we brought out of the notification, Swachh Bharat Mission came a bit ahead of the revised rules. 2014, 2016, we had to again redo the manual provisions. After these rules came in April, and our manual came out in September, August. So we saw that the bylaws need to be introduced as per the Rule 15. Sundanarayan ji, Madam, is a witness that suddenly there was a case in Delhi High Court. The then acting Chief Justice Haragopal or someone notified that you do it because MCD and my friend Khandelwal ji is sitting there. But let us keep it within the four walls here or the triangular walls here, that the rules have been notified under the hand of the Lieutenant Governor in January 2018. But they are not fully implemented even today. I reasonably lowered my tone. Yeah, this is Delhi. This is symptomatic everywhere. So again, we thought bulk waste generator would be a very good takeoff. And There I was personally involved. I am also thankful to my retired colleague, JLG, Rajinder Singh Jayal. He brought in a bit of, legal language in that. But we were always trying to make it more friendly, what is called World Bank, ease of doing business. If you read it, we said that if you claim that you're not a bulk waste generator, ULB should not insist on that. And so many provisions are there, making it very friendly. And once it was decided that I will have to come here, I went through that again. But let me honestly tell you that if it is treated as a legal instrument by the urban local body to target certain people, it will not work. Unless the ULB puts in a place that they are in control of the overall municipal solid waste management and they are majorly complying with the SWM rules, then alone this will come. It is the part of the same pizza or pie, whatever you call it. So the cities which have done really well, like Indore and others, have also done well in bulk waste. Forgive me if I'm taking Noida. I come from Noida, and Gurugram is there. He's just looking at the urbanization and the landscape there. You can say everybody, almost every plot is a bulk waste generator. Forgetting those, leaving aside those villages that were there. There, complaints is not there. And ULBs, when such surveillance and certain things are coming, they are looking at it and trying to pass it on that my responsibility will be over once I identify and put a label that this is bulk waste generator. So I think a lot of improvement in the bulk waste provision is required. As Madam was saying, we need to develop a system by which the informals and others try to get registered and coming, and they provide the service of the required quality. All that is non-existent today. By doing so, I think the burden on the ULB will be greatly reduced, and it will also not have that kind of slug problem. Now we have to compare bulk waste generator with other services. Let us compare with, say, water supply and electricity, which are the public services. Solid waste management is also there. Whenever there is a bulk consumer for water, there is a proper instrument of covenant or agreement between the parties. And that only after that, everything comes. Electricity is much more stringent and it also comes. See, once you exceed the contracted load, nowadays electronic meters are there, immediately you get a penalty of that. It doesn't work like that in waste. Water also, it doesn't work. Waste management doesn't work. Once again, I'm sorry I was late. I left my house at exactly maybe 2-3 minutes ahead, 8:19. 45 minutes I was waiting for the taxi to come because there was a bulk traffic jam in Noida. I don't know, Khandelwal ji, ab 32 se aa gaya. मैं तो 120 से हूँ. The guy was showing video, sir, मैं क्या करूँ, यहीं पर struck up हो गया. I thought it's a matter of 2 minutes. Then ultimately my son had to go through the village and drop me at sector 52. All the flooding was there. So I'm talking about bulk waste generator, but urbanization needs lot of urban infrastructure, lot. If there is a stagnant water on the roads, I can straight away say that all all the drain side drains, etc., have been clogged with plastic bottle. Everything. I need not take it.
Mr. Ravindran, you're talking about Noida.
Oh.
My colleagues have just sent pictures of our road in that main road of CSC in front of the Gurugram. We have water up to the window. Okay. So let's not even begin to prove that civic governance right now. And in the age of climate change, when we will see today, the rain was only for half an hour. The really hard rain. Only this
The
is,
sun is already out.
and this is the state, okay? But let's forget dengue, which most are not even to harm me in this room have suffered. We have a crisis of platelets right now. All that, let's forget. Let's right now just think about what we as people can do. Because that's also enabling. Otherwise,
Yes.
we will only look at the fact that
Yeah, facing a minor disaster every time there is a hard rain, something like that. So coming back to our bulk question, we are all part of it in the urban landscape. Now, bulk waste generator in the national context, we have 50 to 60 what we call million plantings. These are just a handful of numbers, 50 to 60. If we target them, we will be covering 50% of the statutory urban law. Whereas my total number of statutory towns is nearly 4,800, or you can say 5,000, 100 times more. Just if I implement the BWG properly or implement the SWM rules properly, what we are reporting 73%, 73% progress collected, 90% collected, etc. This itself will contribute to a huge weightage with the whole biology. So bulk waste generator problem is our problem, no doubt, but it is a problem of the urban local body as much as its road infrastructure, its transportation, its other plotting infrastructure is concerned. Unfortunately, the departments or the government has not absorbed that importance because solid waste departments are among the weakest in the country or even non-existent. So you pick up the bulk waste generator provision and find out that 100 kg and say that you are a bulk waste generator, you manage on your own. Informal, there is a discussion also. Many RWS are actually earning money out of solid waste management. If we think technically there, nobody at a zero cost can manage their own solid waste management. Obviously, the informal guy, he may be managing his dry waste and simply throwing out the wet waste, which is difficult, more difficult to treat comparatively. Some of my scientists may say that this is more easier to do. Fine, I agree with that, not a problem. So this, the whole urban governance within which our solid waste management rules are a part of it is failed. So from this perspective also, what we can do to make it a good implementation strategy for the UAVs with the institutional framework. Again, on the other side also, let me honestly tell you, government at the top level is always afraid of creating another rent-seeking facility. And big jargon, I don't have the courage to spell it out properly. So governments are scared of creating another rent seeking opportunity and this. But at the same time, as I said, when we read and we prepared, our dream was that these banquet halls, marriage halls, etc. I was talking about the huge bulk traffic jam. Suddenly there may be a big wedding in the locality. And the next day, definitely your pickup time in the entire locality will be affected if the guy is sincerely picking up the waste from that bulk waste spot. That is exactly the statute or the rules wants to prevent that you manage it on your own. If this is managed properly, it can cut down on their operational costs. But the system of penalizing them if it is not done properly is not very well structured, and it becomes watered down. So therefore, I hardly find any wet waste management in the public generator. 3-4 years back, again, through the NGT order, my colleague Ankit Jain and everyone is there. There was a big task given to us, including central ministry also. Just go and inspect all the 5-star hotels and the big hotels in Delhi, whether they are doing it. What was found was not doing. And they, by the force of the NGT orders, they put down. But again, today, we do not know whether they are actually working and what is the quality. Quality of composting OWCs, that is organic waste converters, also need to be brought out. So, friends, any local body here? I don't think many local bodies are, other than Gurugram and Rajamandri, etc. So, I would like you to bring more value to the and in the book, so that we will be able to know. We are not people at the cutting edge. Yes, but you are doing it 365 days a year. You know the whole situation. Ideally, if it was done nicely, and these bulk waste generators should have replaced 1 or 2 cylinders with their own biogas that must have been, or they would have stopped buying their fertilizers for their greenery, etc. This is an ideal situation, but the truth will be somewhere in between. But today it is almost zero. We get all kinds of excuses that the gas that we generate, our cooks do not like it because it doesn't have enough calorific value. It is all yellow flame. So we need to go to another extent. Don't use it. Generate electricity and export it to the grid. You may have to clean up the gas more. So, but it is a very assured quality, and the buyback is also assured. We may continue to draw the pipe. Now coming back to 100 kg, volume wise, it will be about a drum, a big 200-liter drum. That in a city like Delhi or Mumbai, I am sure many establishment or shops like a juice shop, etc., would be there, would definitely generate that kind of waste. So I think CHC should help us that how to exempt them. Now, we are very much interested in livelihoods and businesses. There may be a space of 150 square meters, but doing a huge business. There are many shops like that, but obviously they cannot do it. And if they are, hived off to the private operator, we don't know it is being thrown or not. So if it is in a dense area, etc., our system may continue to take that, but at a higher rate. What we call, extra money to the ULB. whenever we watch these kind of shops or restaurants, at the end of the day, at 1 p.m. in the night, 1 a.m. in the night, or after 12, they're taking it and dumping it somewhere. Environment is polluted. I want you to tell your experience also. I feel that 100 kg is too stringent, looking at the kind of establishments that are there. And we need to probably increase it so that a rule which is failing is obviously failing for many reasons. And one of the reasons is it becomes unimplementable. Probably we need to tweak it. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I want that when it comes to these residential units also, 5,000 square meters is roughly equal to 50 residential units. 50 residential units, 200 population, right? 200 population, you will be generating how much? 50 kg wet waste. The rule says wet waste you have to manage on the site, and the dry waste you need to hand it over to the authorized area. Yes. So we are in a kind of crossroads as far as bulk waste generators are there. We thought it will take off very nicely and reduce the burden to 30 to 40% of the urban local body, and also improve their user fee collection mechanism and the revenues from that, the tariff user fee from that. But that also did not happen. So Indore and other cities which are doing the whole thing in a nice manner, they are able to crack the code, and their bulk waste generator management is also very good. So the ULBs need to just look at it as a part of the whole system. If they want to use this instrument, that at least one part will be well managed, though our entire other part of the municipal solid waste remains in a non-systematic manner. They are not quite honest in that. They cannot achieve that. Because the anecdotal evidence will always come in saying that you are not managing your waste properly, so why you are compelling me? So all these things will come up. So as a ministry, again, there is an opportunity for revision of solid waste management rules. There is a proposal under the circular economy that landfill will be, this is one of the important reform we would like to bring. Landfill will be not a free facility, but the tipping there done by the ULB or the plant will have to be fee-based. And the landfill shall not be accessible to the plant operator. Today, whether it is Ramkey or any other integrated waste management facility, we have done in good faith that you have the entire collection door to door and bring it and process it, and only the remnant inerts and non-processables only should go to the land. So we have given large parcels of the land. In Kanpur, when there was an administration problem, the whole plant became a land. So that was once Prime Minister medal winner, Kanpur, in those days. Same thing happened in Baroda also. These are all my personal. Even Indore was falling like that. Indore, and their plant was not working, and the whole 100 acres that was given was becoming a huge dump site. So these reforms are now being proposed that landfilling will be fee-based, and it will not be under the control of any waste management facility. Another aspect which comes from waste to electricity is our friends in Delhi, major plants are here. They say that we are reducing the whole volume to 30%. Their own words. They say 25 to 30% is the ash that is going. So when we compare with Japan, which burns, which has got a lot of incinerators, and any dry waste which is contaminated with a speck of food also, they do not bring into recycling. They say it has to be burnable waste. So they are burning you. And they are presenting that only 10% is the ash content which is going to the land. So we are actually 3 times more. That means either our processes are not good or the feedstock itself is very bad. So this also, if it is landfill based, again, there should be a structured way. If you bring 10% only, maybe a reasonable rate. If you bring in more, you will have to pay higher surcharges above that. So this kind of reform India needs. In that whole package, we need to put in the bulk waste generators also. I honestly believe that wet waste, if it is managed in the home and in the bulk waste facilities, the compost quality should be very good. I am dying to see the results, and we are using it for our own these are decorative plants only. We are using, we are not putting into the crop. The management problem for the ULB gets reduced. How to bring the informals into a license system, that also we do not know. We have not understood it fully. We cannot simply, my own residential welfare association is earning so much money because so many group of guys are coming and saying that we will pay you something. We will pay you something. So this is the whole problem of bulk waste generator, as I understood at this point of time. And I thank CAC. You see, 3-4 years back, CAC helped us and we talked about segregate. And that is a very prominent book now everywhere. So this, with this workshop and with inputs from our esteemed friends here, I think the bulk waste generator will also will be tweaked around so that it will give a input to the revision of the solid waste management rules, which is already notified. The team has been already notified. So at least 50 or 60 of our major cities will straight away save on their transportation costs. 1 or 2 years back, Mumbai notified that around 400 trucks they did not hire. Every year they hire trucks, around 2,000 numbers of the trucks. So they reduced their hiring by 400 numbers simply by implementing the bulk waste generators provisions according to the rules. So dear friends, thank you. And I want inputs from you, and I really appreciate the efforts of ULBs coming all over here, because you are a very key person. Solid waste management persons are not easily allowed to go here and there. So after the workshop also, please spare some time and continue to provide your inputs from the field level that we will take. And along with CAC, I think a very good rule book or a guidance book, let us call it, will come out, so that bulk waste generator mechanism really improves the whole solid waste management picture and gives relief to the ULBs from the volumes and the tonnages of the waste that they are burdened with. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. And I was honestly delighted to hear that the policies are in the making to disincentivize dumping. Just to give you a quick context, between September and December last year, Honorable Prime Minister created an interministerial committee to look into the circularity elements of solid waste management, both in urban and rural space. And CSE was privileged to have given the responsibility to come up with the draft roadmap. It is an internal document. So Sunita ji had to chair a series of consultation workshops to understand where things were not going right, what could you do for a change. And those consultation workshops continued for about 3 months. And it is so great to hear that these efforts are eventually going to see the daylight very, very soon. And I'm really delighted as a practitioner to hear that.
But
So-
then it's not about us, it's really about the other side. And I think
Absolutely,
having Mr. Ravindran there, he's like a voice of reason, he's a voice of experience in the ministry. And this whole idea about disincentivizing landfill, we have been talking about for the last 10 years, putting a landfill tax so that there's a tax on the amount of waste that goes to the landfills because land is being used there. And the fact that the ministry took, they clearly is a group there. And I think Rupa ji, who's not here, but is very much present,
Yes.
Mr. Ravindran, very important because this is the kind of learning that we need to bring in. And thank you, Mr. Ravindran, for being there and for helping to steer us because, when 2016 and Mr. Khandelwal is here, when we made the rules in 2018, we also did not know a lot of this. So as we experience this, we learn, we evolve, we move on, but it's good to see that there is responsive. And if we can get the landfill tax, wow.
Well, so we started a bit late because of the rain in the morning. So now, without any further delay, if I may request Ravinder ji and Sunita ji to officially release the report, and I would request Kuldeep, Kaifi, and Mo to come on the stage because these are the 3 people who have done all the hard work in the 2 cities to produce these reports. Yeah. So we'll share the copies of this report during tea break so that we can continue with the session without, getting into this report distribution thing. Yeah. Thank you. And let me also express my deepest sense of gratitude to both Agra and Gurugram municipal corporations for their excellent support. Without their help, we couldn't have, completed these studies. So we have Naresh ji leading the Gurugram Municipal Corporation as Joint Commissioner, and he's also responsible for almost the entire solid waste management in the city. And we'll bring you in, Naresh ji, because we know a lot is about to happen in Gurugram. And after the report was prepared, we did a few rounds of consultations with Gurugram Municipal Corporation, and they have agreed to take a series of actions. We'll hear from them. So now, without any further delay, we are really short of time. I would request my colleague Mohsen Gupta to make a brief presentation. I know that we have to now cut short the presentation duration, so I'll request you to cut it short as much as possible so that we have more time for panel discussion and thereafter questions from the participants. Over to you.
The mic, once I share my. Thank you, everyone. So already we have said that Kafi and Kuldeep has co-authored both the studies with us. So thanks to them. On behalf of them also, I'm speaking over here. So I will just touch base the basic, data things and definitions, because already we have discussed these things. So it's the data taken from the urban dashboard, urban SBM dashboard, that 1,54,000 is the total generation of urban area, the waste generation. And as the PHO guideline, the BWGs have a contribution of 30 to 40% over this total. So if we go by this calculation, we'll see that it's 46 to 61,000 tons of waste per day is being contributed by the bulk waste generators. And I won't go to the definitions in the detail because we have already discussed it. So Solid Waste Management Rules 2016 talks about different categories of bulk waste generators. As ma'am said, all the institutions, it's be it commercial, it's residential, be it educational, all of them are whoever is generating a rate of 100 kgs and more per day waste are the bulk waste generators. So if you talk about the duties of the bulk waste generators, we have already discussed it. The first of all is source segregation, and second is their in-situ management of organic waste as much as possible within their premises, and they have to hand over their dry waste to the recyclable, to the authorized recyclers or authorized waste collectors. And also they have to segregate the construction and demolition waste, sanitary waste, and e-waste, and hand over to the authorized waste collectors. And if we go by the implementation protocol, as Ravinder sir has also mentioned, there is a very good step-by-step guideline is mentioned in the CPHO guideline. We can refer to that. And it's basically the first and foremost thing is to identify and map the BWGs existing in the city, quantify their quantum of waste generation, because quantification helps you to not only calculate the user charges for the dry waste collection, but also it will help you to for the city to have a comprehensive plan for overall waste management in that system. And also after identification and mapping, there should be a proper monitoring cell who will do this periodical regular inspections to compliance check. And first of all, there should be these CPHO guideline also, and rules 2016 also talks about that cities should have either amend or to create their bylaws, and into that bylaw, the bulk waste generator provision should be there. And these bylaws should be notified. Otherwise, the city doesn't have any authority to levy taxes or user charges or penalize the bulk waste generators. And also, urban local bodies are supposed to provide every kind of support to the bulk waste generators in terms of capacity building, awareness, technical support to the bulk waste generators who are managing at their own, or also doing the awareness, and they're helping them to the quality test of the compost, at the same time helping them to linkage the market linkage of the byproducts, whatever they are producing or generating in their in-situ management. And also collection of the dry waste and inert is also responsibility of the urban local bodies. And user charge collection, penal provision, and incentivization are the three major components we can see in the bylaws and rules also, which is a kind of keystone for the enforcement or proper enforcement of bulk waste generators. So we have seen in various cities that user charge collection rate is not so high, as we have also discussed about it. So enforcement is an issue that user charge collection is not regular. Penal provision, though it's mentioned in the bylaws, we'll come into that. But if challan has been issued, but if it is not recovered, so there is no point of having your penal provision, because people are not, they don't care about the penal provision if it is not implemented on the field in such manner. And incentivization is also an important aspect for behavior change. We have seen in many spheres of life. So incentivizing your complying bulk waste generators is important. We have seen in cities, Pune, Mumbai, Bengaluru, and even Rajahmundry, they are incentivizing the bulk waste generators. For example, waiving off the user charges for dry waste collection, or maybe rebate in the property tax or water tax, or even a simple felicitation, or even given a certificate that you are the good bulk waste generator, you are doing this way, you're complying, that can also be suffice. So this is very important aspect. So now quickly I'll come to the Gurugram findings. So these data I'm giving until January 2023. And as ma'am said that it was really very difficult for us to find out data and kind of arrange the study overall. I mean, how we are getting data from the field. So Gurugram at that point of time had 614 bulk waste generators identified. Out of this 614, the major share is the commercials, which is 62%. And out of 614, only 205 were complying at that point of time, what we have found in the field. And out of these 205, 103s are basically residentials bulk waste generators, and 92s are the commercials. So we have actually divided this study, I mean, these findings into two parts. One is what has worked for Gurugram, another is what yet to be developed in Gurugram. So first of all, I'll come into the redefining by BWGs in the bylaws. As ma'am already mentioned, that Gurugram has redefined the definition of bulk waste generators in the virtue of 74th Constitutional Amendment Act, which actually gives the authority and entitlement to the cities that they can redefine the definition of it, because they have, as a local self-government, they do have this authority. So Gurugram has redefined as 50 kgs. We have seen cities like Panaji in Goa, they have done 25 kgs as a bulk waste generators. We have seen in Indore, there are different categories of bulk waste generators, 50, 70, and different divisions. So redefining bulk waste generators is an important aspect which they have put in the bylaws, but at the same time, still the bylaw in Gurugram is not being notified, which is a challenge we have found. But in spite of that, they have kind of issued various notifications periodically, which is being made to the bulk waste generators for their duties, roles, and responsibilities, at the same time for penalization things and provisions. And also, there is a very, very good example of forming or constituting citizens monitoring committee, which we have seen in Gurugram, which is a classic example of community participation. Even Solid Waste Management Rules 2016 talks about ULB should take into community participation as much as possible for decentralized waste management. So this CMC or community will today Monica ma'am is there with us. She will talk about the role of the CMC in Gurugram. CMC was instrumental to kind of initiate the survey in Gurugram. Number one. Number two, to kind of make a data transparency or data set for the bulk waste generators, and also empanelment of the agencies. They kind of lobby for this thing. And also survey and mapping was there until 2023 January, although very intermittently, but it was not a comprehensive survey, we can say, but it was there. And inspection was quite a good manner, and also empanelment of agency was something which happened, although it is not mandated in the rules 2016, but CPHO guideline talks about that cities can have a list of empaneled agencies who can kind of provide service to the bulk waste generators. So Gurugram had 11 agencies enlisted as empaneled agencies who actually functioned from 2018 until 2023. I'll come into that. And there are very good practices. One of them is a cluster-based approach. I'll talk about that later. And what didn't go so well in Gurugram, we have found that source segregation, again, it's a pan-India issue. It's not a Gurugram-specific issue. Capacity building is much more huge thing is required, especially for the BWG representatives. And current compliance rate is just 33% in Gurugram, which definitely should be improved. And penalties, as you said, in the last quarter of 2022-23, Gurugram has issued challan of 6 lakhs, but the recovery rate is 0, which is very striking. The penalty is how effective it is. And monitoring by the MCG officials, we agree that there is a very staff shortage in Gurugram, but at the same time, establishing monitoring cell is yet to be developed in Gurugram. And after the periodical review by the officials, it was found that all the empaneled agencies were not performing in the desired manner. So in 2023, they have de-empaneled, and they said that it's now the citizens or BWGs are open to kind of receive service from any agencies, which we have found that created a kind of anarchy and confusion between the bulk waste generators, because they were that time was not sure about whose service should be taken. So that was a kind of critical situation for Gurugram. And I would like to say that there are some current interventions or development in Gurugram, as Atinda already has mentioned, that after finishing this report, we had a series of consultation with the citizens and the officials of MCG, and we have come up with our recommendations, and the MCG has taken good note of that, and they are taking initiatives. Number one, they have completed another round of survey in the August 2023, where they have finally found 1681 bulk waste generators, which is a kind of satisfactory number in terms of a city like Gurugram, which has more than 2 million population. And also they are going to establish the monitoring cell as we have recommended. They are going to revive the CMC or Citizens Monitoring Committee. They are going to, start the impaneling agencies again. So these are some good things they have taken up. And I'll just go through the case studies we have in the report. You can see there are 11 good practices we have found in Gurugram. So this one is Nirvana country. They started composting even way before the rules 2016 came in place. So, and they are doing at their own self initiatives. No service providing agencies are engaged there, and they generate 700 to 1 kg 700 kgs to 1 ton of waste per day, and they are basically producing. Yes, yes, ma'am. Yeah, I know, ma'am. Yeah, they will get it. Okay, so this one is the combined facility, and this one is another.
About the combined facility.
I will talk. So this combined facility is basically for the BWGs who had the space constraint. So societies came together, and in one society they have opened this compost facility. And for the good thing, it's a part of incentivization from the part of MCG, that when they didn't find a land, they approached to the MCG, and MCG helped them to get the land and to establish them. So it can be a solution for the BWGs who have space scarcity. And also, this is Close South Nirvana. They are the volunteers from the citizens who took initiatives. And this is biomethanation plant in Hotel Ibis. They are generating biogas, and it is sufficient, according to them, it is sufficient for them to prepare a meal for their staffs or one-time rice for the guests. So it is saving 10% consumption of LPG gas per day. So I will come to Agra now. So Agra is basically has identified 2136 BWGs in their 2019 survey, and residential is 31% and commercial is rest of them commercials. So for Agra, it's featuring in their bylaws. It's a good thing, and they have hired a concessionaire, dedicated concessionaire for managing bulk waste generators waste. And also, they have, they are set up some dedicated facilities for organic waste management from the sabji mandi and flower waste. And for Agra, again, it's a bit challenging for one concessionaire to manage the whole 2000 or more than 2000 BWGs, which we found a challenge. And considering the tourist footfall in Agra, the number should be higher because hotel industry is very much developed in Agra. So that's an issue. And the compliance rate is only 4%, which we found we need a lot of improvement in Agra in terms of institutionalization of BWG compliance. And process of identifying BWGs should be more comprehensive, and enforcement of user charge collection, penal provision should be more proper in Agra, we have found. And revising the existing bylaw is also important in Agra. And as I mentioned, that there are two facilities. One is there are three facilities: two for processing wet waste from the sabji mandi, and one is from the flowers. Now we have, as Atinda mentioned, we have done efficacy study of the bylaws, municipal bylaws in across India, and we have analyzed almost around 40 to 50 bylaws in India. And the bulk waste generator situation is saying the same, that bylaw provision in the bylaws, we have the BWG provision in the bylaws we have studied have the 100% provision. But cities are claiming 59% is the compliance rate, and citizens are saying it's only 40%. In terms of source segregation, is the same. The provision is there 100% in the bylaws, but the citizens are claiming that it's only 30%. Even we can see it's lesser than that. And user charge collection also, citizens is claiming it's 42%, and cities are claiming 73%, but every bylaws have this mentioned in their bylaws, every cities. Penalization also, again, 68% cities are claiming that they are penalizing. for contravention of bylaws, but 43% citizens saying that they haven't seen it being penalized. And if we go for incentivization, it's in the least priority for the cities. It's 65% they are in the bylaws, but actually it's been implemented by cities even claiming 14% and citizens claiming it's 8%. Now I will just come into the challenges. So it's one part is it's two-folded for the cities and for the bulk waste generators, different. So cities find it difficult to implement bylaws. Identification, mapping, quantification is difficult, and institutional and technical support is also is not sufficient for the cities to be provided to the bulk waste generators. And as I've already discussed, the user charges, penal provision, recovery rate, which are very, very low, and incentivization is low. Monitoring system should be developed for the cities in terms of bulk waste generators. And one last point I would like to mention about the challenges with the cities. We have found that there is a striking conflict between the Swachh Sarvekshan guideline, which toolkit, which says that cities who have lesser than 1 lakh population, so BWGs are exempted in Swachh Sarvekshan toolkit, that cities having lesser than 1 lakh population, cities can manage their waste, BWGs are not mandated. But whereas guidelines and rules talks about it's nothing to do about the population. It's mandated for everyone. And for the bulk waste generators, again, source segregation is an issue, capacity building is an issue, and fund mobilization is a challenge for them, space constraint is a challenge, and quality testing of compost, it's not done regularly. So I'll finish with the recommendation. So as we said, survey and mapping of BWGs must be included, and we can see a survey format in the CPHO guideline, but it is not done comprehensively in the city. So it should be taken seriously. We have been talking about integrating informal sector. So we have seen in Gurugram also that although it's mentioned that the drivers should be handed over to the authorized recyclers or waste collectors, but in Agra and Gurugram, both the cities, we have seen that either mixed waste or the drivers is being handed over to the not only to the informal sector, but also there are different organizations, startups, companies, it's being handed over to them instead of handing over to the authorized waste collectors. There might be many reasons. One of them is it's very handy for them because the ULB's concessionaire or ULB's vehicles or fleets are not that regular in terms of waste collection. So it is it's handy for them. In some cases, as Ravinderji was also saying, that BWGs are earning money out of handing over this thing. So in this case, ULB is losing their revenue. Because it's going. So in this case, we also recommend that cities should think, as Rules 2016 also talks about this, that integration of informal sector, giving them training, capacitating them, and how they can be, involved and engage this whole value system. And also institutional arrangement should be more proper, including monitoring, sale, inspection, and everything. Regular meeting with the bulk waste generators is a recommendation for us. Their concerns, their issues should be heard of and should be addressed properly by the cities. And dedicated technical support to the BWGs who are managing at their own or who are in the process of installing their plants. It's very important. And creating legal provision for empanelment of services can be considered by the cities. And strengthening penalization and incentivization are also important. Communication strategy should be developed properly to generate more awareness, and provision for dashboard where the data transparency, data related to bulk waste generators should be available and accessible to the citizens. And mandatory testing of compost is also important. And revisiting the 2017 CPHO guideline. Is it a time to revisit about this? So we'll discuss about it in the panel discussion. So this is from my side. Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you so much, Mo, for making it much quicker than I thought. Let me now invite Arvind, my colleague Arvind Singh Sanger from CSC's Environment Monitoring Lab. So Arvind has been instrumental with the team that basically did all the sample collection and testing of the compost standard. So Arvind, over to you to present the plan. Thank you, sir. So we are streaming it live, so sometime we struggle with these technologies. Zoom is still easier.
And then the panel is there, all this discussion can happen.
So good afternoon to all. So this is a study actually performed from 2021 to 2022 to up to the Feb of 2023. So sample for this study we collected in a different of the time frame or in a different month. So this study actually having the multiple replicates for the compost sample, which collected from the 3 states, mainly Gurugram from Haryana, Uttar Pradesh, this is the Agra and Odisha. So the sample size is the total 25 sample, which collected from the 23 sites. So this is the standard which we are selecting the parameter from this standard. This is the FCO to the 2009. This standard for the micronutrients, essential parameter, heavy metal, but pathogen is not, or microbiological parameter is not given the FCO. So we just adopting the microbial parameter from the USEP and WHO. Yes, ma'am. Yes.
So before that, you say it's not, but it's a topic.
Yes. Yes. So this is the sample location. So this is the Odisha. So I am just representing this thing to what is the input material. So food, vegetable, and kitchen waste is the main input material for the composting. This is the for Agra, and this is from Gurugram. So this is the parameter which we are evaluating for Gurugram and Haryana sample. So just we are showing here the pH is the not the problem. If pH is going towards the basic side, but the acidic is the problem, because in acidic the nature, the microbial activity will be very low, or microbe will die soon. So composting process or compost needed some microbial activity. So pH also is the very important parameter, and the moisture. So in Haryana is showing the moisture a little bit high. So moisture also in a final compost, if moisture is high, so it's showing the microbial activity will be rise. And the
Essentially, one key learning from this, and this is 2 reports we have done. We've done a report on biosolids, which is being presented today. In fact, right now in Orissa and Bhubaneswar, where we have taken samples from sewage treatment plants or FSTPs for the sludge, and this is compost. And one thing, Arvind, that we have clearly learned is higher the moisture, higher the pathogens.
Yes,
so let's get that very clear, that whether it comes from sludge or it comes from kitchen waste, moisture control is key for pathogen management.
And CN ratio. So CN ratio in the Haryana sample we got it's 2 samples is more than 10, but most of the sample is coming below the 10. So if CN ratio is the below the 10, so CN ratio not recommending. If the coming below the 10, it means the nitrogen always ready for the plant uptake. So this called the actually mineralization. So mineralization is not recommending. So CN ratio, it should be coming above the 10 is a good for the soil, even for the plant. And the fecal coliform and E. coli is showing in all sites from the Gurugram. It's coming from the some fecal contamination. It's either maybe from the contaminated diaper, which actually sometimes throwing in the dustbin. Yeah, and some contaminated tissue paper, which contaminated with the feces. And it's all also come during the process. If the some pet animals feces interact with the with the best actually. This is the heavy metal. So some sites showing mercury but not that much high, but chromium is a chromium and nickel. So Haryana is not showing very means having the contamination for the heavy metal. So it's a, I think so it's a only few sites only showing the heavy metal in the compost. This is the Agra result. So pH is okay, and moisture is only 2 sites showing the higher moisture, but pathogen is nil actually, or acceptable condition from the Agra compost. This is the heavy metal. Heavy metal is the issue in the Agra in 2 or 3 sites, but other sites is okay. This is the Odisha sample. So Odisha samples is okay for everything, but the CN ratio is very less there. And the pathogen also, microbial contamination also is showing in almost sites, but only 2 sites is free from the fecal or E. coli contamination. This is the heavy metal from Odisha. So heavy metal, in sense of the heavy metal, Odisha compost is also showing the good result. So this is the comparative study of three of the state. So Gurugram, Agra, and Odisha. So pH is okay for every site or every state. This is the moisture. So if we are seeing the moisture, Odisha is perfect and appropriate in sense of the moisture. Agra, 1 or 2 sites showing the higher moisture percentile, and in Gurugram, only 2 sites is within the acceptable limit of the moisture, and other than the 2, all sites is showing the very significant moisture component. Sample taken
twice. We will discuss that.
is it twice or in 3 replicates?
And you took it from after they had stored the sample. So
Yes, ma'am.
before, after treatment, where they had stored the
Yes,
sample.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
And we don't know how many days of retention time. That's another, it's part of the SOP we need, is how many days will the sample be stored before it leaves. Very simple issue. So it's not a big deal, but when we started checking, there was no SOP. So we could only go, and remember, we are going to collect the sample, and we are going to collect the sample from where it is stored. So that's the bottom line. Now that could be something that the RW will say, I'm storing it for another 15 days, drying it and then using it. But we don't have that in terms of our SOP or any idea that we have. That's the bottom.
And this is the CN ratio. So comparative study of the CN ratio is showing.
Now, I want to discuss a little bit of the CN ratio. So this is very interesting. We have lots of debates on this internally. I work with the lab. So one of the advantages I have is that these studies are being done under my direction. And one of the things that we are really learning is that there is no real understanding of C and N ratio and what is the optimal level that needs to be there for plant growth. Now, if you look at the FCO standard, it simply says below 20.
Yes.
All standards that we have tested technically are compliant with the FCO standard. But what does below 20 mean in terms of plant growth? Now, the FCO standard was made for a different reason, but now we have composting happening. We need, and we have, this is also from the FSTPs, we have biosolid sludge coming in. And we are basically finding the bottom line is nitrogen ratio to carbon is not at all what it needs to be for plant growth. It may be below the standard, it may be within the standard, but it isn't along what is best for plant growth. And that again is very simple. So what is carbon? What is carbon? Leaves. Okay. So if you want to fix a CNN ratio, all you need to do is to add leaf litter to your compost litter. And you have fixed it. Again, it's not rocket science. But there are 2 things that we as policy are asking. One, we are asking agricultural scientists to please give us more clarity. on what is a right CNN ratio, because we can, right now the Gurugram administration, or we are discussing this today with Secretary Urban Development in Bhubaneswar, there we are saying your samples are compliant. So you don't say that they're not compliant, but they may not be the right things for land. So how do we improve the carbon to nitrogen ratio so that when we apply it to land, it is right? So that's why the CNN ratio both needs policy fixing and then, of course, implementation on ground. It means that when we do composting, it is very clear. I mean, I've always done composting, but I've now moved to a, what do you call it, a tub composter. And the first thing Kefi has come and told me is, and which we always did as a rule, but he sort of, you must put your leaves in it. So I think, and we have enough leaf litter, all of us. So I think that's the fixing that needs to be done. But again, we need to learn this so that as we move on, and that's where a lot of these things have to be incorporated in policy. I mean, so I don't want you to please go back with these results, and I'm very excited by the results because first time we've actually gone out and looked at technologies, and broadly we are also learning that it's technology agnostic. It doesn't matter other than the technology, which is the OWC. Most other technologies are producing good compost. It's not about the technology, it's about the management of that technology and the SOPs that you need for the management of that technology, which is really about capacity building and some amount strengthening of policy. Sorry, Arvind.
Yeah, no.
The CNN, we've had hours of discussion on CNN. I really learned what CNN is all about, and it's not CNN. Yes.
Okay. So, okay, and the Odisha sample is showing very less CN ratio, and CN ratio in layman language, if I'm say, अगर CN ratio कम होगा तो नाइट्रोजन एक छोटे से टाइम पीरियड में प्लांट एब्जॉर्ब कर लेगा, ठीक है? तो एक प्लांट एक सस्टेनेबल ग्रोथ के लिए लॉन्ग टाइम तक हमें न्यूट्रिएंट्स देते रहना होगा उसको, तो इस शॉर्ट टाइम में नाइट्रोजन खत्म हो जाएगा, आफ्टर द सम टाइम नाइट्रोजन नहीं होगा उसके पास ग्रोथ के लिए और टेकिंग के लिए, तो सीएन रेशियो कम होगा तब ऐसा होगा। सीएन रेशियो अगर ज्यादा होगा तो क्या होगा, माइक्रोबायल एक्टिविटी जो होगी वो इमोबिलाइज हो जाएगी, माइक्रोब्स स्प्रेड नहीं हो पाएंगे, एक्टिविटी ऑफ द डिग्रेडेशन विल बी वेरी स्लो ऑन दैट टाइम। So this is the thing behind of the CN ratio. So particular we needed appropriate CN ratio and the below side should not be below the 10. Appropriate CN ratio and below side is the 15. This is the thing, mineralization, the equilibration between the mineralization and immobilization. So 15 is showing the participation in mineralization and immobilization in the lower side. And this is the NPK. So all sides from the all state is showing the rich of the NPK. NPK is a major component for the nutrients for the plant. So all compost is showing very good results in terms of the NPK. And this is a comparative study for heavy metal. So this is the mercury, it's the 4 sides, and other heavy metal also showing in the Agra compost. This is the Gurugram. Gurugram is very less contamination in terms of the heavy metal.
Which really means segregation.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
For us, heavy metal contamination, and that's why it's exciting to see Gurugram. That Gurugram, again, I would have told Ravindranji that Ravindranji, please don't add to problems. हमें कंपोस्ट नहीं करना है, आप अपने प्लांट्स बनाइए, उसको सब कुछ जलाइए, सब कंटामिनेटेड है. We obviously don't want our soils to get contaminated. The reason this study is interesting and exciting is that you can see that it's not about the technology, it's about the management of the technology. And if you're contaminating at the source, you will find heavy metals in the end result. If you are not contaminating at the source, then your contamination of heavy metals can go down, which is why this is so important for us to make sure that source segregation happens. And source segregation means that even batteries and all other sources at the household level are not mixed at all. But if it happens, and you can see from the results, there are many places where there are no heavy metals. So it's not needed that we need to have heavy metals. That's very important as a takeaway that we need to understand. No heavy metal. Exactly. If there is wet waste, there's wet waste, and you don't do proper management, it will have pathogens. But heavy metal, it does not need to have. Okay? So which means segregation is critical.
Yes.
And this is the comparative study of the pathogen or microbes. So Agra showing very good results in terms of the microbes or pathogen. Gurugram showing the some little bit higher amount of the pathogen or microbes. And Odisha also showing 1 or 2 sites is showing the appropriate result, but other site is showing the higher in the microbes.
Now, important to learn here is that all of Odisha technology is tub composting. So it is a technology dependent, okay? And all of Odisha site, it's really about how much, how they manage it, how many days it is retained, how dry is the site, what else can be done to make sure that there is pathogen removal.
Yes, sir.
Sorry, what is stuff? Yes, I know. In fact, Bilkul, it's in the report. Actually, if you see the report, that's one of our findings. STP.
In order to reduce the threshold for consumption for waste, most of the plants.
Very good point. Excellent point. And that's maybe something that we need to see more carefully, but it's in the report. We have mentioned it. In fact, I was surprised when I saw it. I didn't understand. So now thank you very much for explaining.
हम लोगों ने दिया है report के अंदर, but one of the
In tub composting, madam, one of the problem I have also observed, tub can be big or small. They turn over in the same tub. If they really turn over to another tub and keep an empty tub, I think that will aid in
So
the
the tub
moisture reduction.
Again, it's both. It's about getting the science of composting understood to people, that there have to be 2 tubs. One you turn, the next you move, and you put for drying. I mean, honestly, all of us need to learn. I don't think it's fair to think that we are experts at tub composting, okay? And there is nobody who's there who's teaching us. These are things that we have to demand, whether it is from YouTube or from Google or from all of us. We need to learn this. And this is part of the capacity building, that if we all have to become waste managers and we all have to understand, as I have understood, the CNN ratio and tub composting and pathogens. Please, Arvind, sorry, I keep interrupting, but I find this work very interesting. Please.
So summary of results. It's a 23 sites, 25 sample from all sites in Agra, Gurugram and Odisha were showing neutral to alkaline pH, except one site at Gurugram, which is slightly acidic. So, and a CN ratio, most of the sites of Gurugram and Odisha showed CN ratio below 10:1. So the sum of NPK from all sites is showing the very good results. The compost of Agra showed a significantly high amount of heavy metal compared to Gurugram and Odisha. So heavy metal contamination in compost may be due to the contamination from the source of raw materials such as medical waste, cosmetic waste, electronic waste at household level, and improper segregation, or through process contamination such as machinery, additives used for composting, and land for compost drying. So contamination from the land also. Almost all sites in Gurugram compost showed a significantly high amount of microbial contamination in terms of E. coli and coliform, while in all sites of Agra sample showed very low microbial load, which is within the permissible limit. In Odisha, 2 compost sites were free from any contamination of E. coli and coliform, but other sites showing significant result. So multiple factors contribute to high microbial load in compost, including contamination from source material, improper segregation of waste at source, improper sanitation during composting, and regrowth of microorganisms due to improper sun drying. So this is the recommendation for the pH. Low pH harm microbes and organic material decomposition. Aerated and adding browns will restore the pH. Or one of the observation, the citrus fruit also making the pH rise actually. So segregation is the one of the component which we can reduce the pH. And the CN ratio. So maintaining a right ratio of green and brown waste is necessary. अगर CN ratio कम आ रहा है तो उसमें हमें brown add करना है. If the CN ratio is a very high, then हमें green add करना है. So CN ratio for ready compost should be below to 20, but not below to 10. Moisture content should be 25%. So regular aeration, adding of browns, and the proper sun drying. And pathogen, the actually sun drying and segregation, and avoiding any contamination during the processing. And the heavy metal. So heavy metal we can stop to contamination our compost by just segregate the things, any unwanted things from the raw materials. Thank you. So one of more thing I am adding here. The quality is not the indicator of any problem, but quality is the indicator of the continuous improvement. So continuous improvement in the composting process, we have to adopt the right step of the processing, like segregation, proper segregation, mixing, proper mixing brown and green, and the shredding. Shredding is the one of the most important factor for a good quality compost. Because
at the end of, once you have dried your compost, both when you put your compost in for composting, the smaller the particle size, the easier to decompose.
Yes.
Also, when you have got it for drying, the tinier the particle size, the easier it is to dry, aerate, and depathogenize. Again, very simple, but needs to be done, part of the SOPs.
so after shredding, maturization. So maturization, the process of the degradation of actually organic material is convert in the compost. So actually in a visual form, we can actually there we can just see the our compost should be black or dark brown. अगर ये होगा then compost ready है अभी आपके लिए. Second last thing जो आता है वो है drying. अगर drying proper होगा ना, proper drying, so वहाँ पे microbes pathogen नहीं होगा. And last thing जो बचती है वो है order. Fall order नहीं होना चाहिए. Fall order means pathogen will be there. And आपका maturization process भी complete नहीं हुआ है. Fall order, just showing that one. So thank you.
Wait a minute, sorry. Just give me 1 minute. I'm going to have to bring this to order a bit because this is, so Atin, we are really out of time. I have been the world's lousiest chair possible. I have taken this meeting and we want tea. Tea is outside. I think everyone is desperate. So let me do one thing. I will take 2 questions. One from the lady at the back who has a burning question, it seems. So I'll take a question from you and anyone else on what you have heard this morning, particularly in terms of clarification. Okay. And we will clarify it and then we will go in for tea. When you come back, you can have a complete, you'll have a panel discussion. You have time, and it's only when you end the panel that you get lunch. So it is very clear after that it is as long as you want to be and how hungry you are. Okay. So 2 questions. Yes, madam. Yes, of course. No, can I say, can I just say, I think Arvind was just trying to explain to you, there's a one site where we saw a real aberration. and Kefi will answer it also what to do. But from my point of view, there was an aberration in one site.
Yes, ma'am.
And we could not understand why that big change in the pH was.
Yes, ma'am.
And when we went back and asked them, they said, ki is wakhat, and it was a temporary thing. We can go back and check. It was a temporary thing that the system was overloaded with citrus at that point. So it could be that I'm not sure whether citrus, whether Kefi will say don't put citrus in compost. I'm sure that's not a problem. Okay, exactly. Exactly. So let's not overemphasize that. I think only Arvind was pointing out to you, because you know, when I see aberration, my first question to them is, "Hamari lab mein koi gadbad thi ki kuch site mein kuch issue tha?" So he went back and he came back to me saying, "Nahi, madam, unke andar citrus tha. They had used a lot, and that's why the pH." So, but don't take that as a guidance. We have not mentioned it as a guidance. Okay. We are saying mixed vegetable waste, fruit waste, all possible. As much as shredded as possible, better. The more brown you mix is better. The more you compost properly as per the guidelines, and the more you dry, that is best. That's the overall guidance we are giving. And segregate. I have someone at the back. So जी आपका तो बड़ा complicated question होता है. आप पैनल में बोलिएगा, ठीक है? अभी सब लोग को चाय चाहिए.
मेरा तो सवाल बड़ा सिंपल सा है.
चलिए.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity. It's a joy and a challenge to be with CSC because you put knowledge into action. मेरा सवाल ये की था कि under the Ravinder ji, good afternoon. मेरा सवाल ये था कि you have under the rules defined that segmentation of the bulk waste generators need to be done. And I think so time has come, we need to really think how this segmentation needs to be done and how the solutions need to be brought for each segmentation of bulk waste generator.
I hold that question. That's an issue. That's an issue for the panel. We have raised a few big issues which the panel will discuss. And one of them is, but can I just say from my point of view, I think what we need is implementation of the current rules. We need the bylaws to come in. We can improve the segregation, the segmentization more and more, but we do not want the rules to go backwards to say smaller quantity. I think what we, Khandelwalji, what we and Ravindranji, we had together done for the High Court is definitely a good template for the bylaws, and they were pretty strong in terms of enforcement as well. That's what we need to drive toward. We need this issue to be discussed a little more. I'm really going to push you people, sorry, and ask you to bear with me as I close this for coffee and tea. Sorry, I'm outside as well. You can catch me if there's something you need to know. Otherwise, Atin will be chairing the next session, and I will leave it to him to manage all the questions I have ducked today. So thank you very much, everyone. Yeah. I think if you agree with me, this is an issue that needs, this is the beginning of our journey. Please don't take this as the end of our journey. This is the first time we've raised the issue of bulk waste generators. First time. We are not here to give you solutions. We're here to say, let's start working and let's start discussing this, and we will come up with solutions. We're not preaching right now. We're not ready for it. We want the landfill tax. So thank you very much, and please a big hand for Mr. Ravindra.
Thank you.
Just for a housekeeping announcement, I would request all of you to keep the tea break as short as possible. I mean, I feel pathetic to kind of make this request so that we are not hungry beyond the lunch time. So what we'll do for a change in the plan, we thought of doing an exclusive, kept web about 15 to 20 minutes to take questions from the participants. So now I'll try and merge the questions from the participants and the panel discussions together so that every panelist discuss what they have to discuss, and we can take relevant questions, 2-3 questions, whatever time permits. So request you to come back in 10 minutes.